The stars disappeared above Seoul when the alien ships arrived. Admiral Taemin Park stood on the bridge of the orbital station, watching through the viewport as massive crystal vessels blocked out the sky. Each ship was the size of a city, their surfaces gleaming like cut diamonds. There were hundreds of them. Captain So-Young Kim rushed to Park's side, her face pale. "Sir, they just destroyed the Harmony and the Victory. Direct hits, no survivors." Park watched the debris scatter like glitter against the black of space. Those ships had been humanity's pride, armed with the best weapons Earth could build. The aliens had cut through them like paper. His hands gripped the rail until his knuckles turned white. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect Korean, though the accent was strange and cold. "I am Commander Vexthal of the Corvani Empire. Your species will listen." On the main screen, an alien figure appeared. Vexthal looked almost human, but his skin was gray like stone and his eyes were solid black. When he smiled, his teeth were sharp like knives. "Humans of Earth," Vexthal continued, "you have committed crimes against the natural order. You expand through space without permission. You refuse to bow to Corvani authority. Worst of all, you teach primitive species to resist us." President Dong Hyun Lee appeared on a smaller screen from the surface. His office in Seoul was dark, emergency lights casting shadows on his worried face. Behind him stood General Hye-jin Choi and Chief Strategist Jae-won Nam. All three looked like they had not slept in days. "What do you want?" Lee asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Vexthal's smile grew wider. "Surrender. Complete and total. Your military will disband. Your government will submit to Corvani rule. Your people will serve the Empire. And if we refuse?" General Choi stepped forward, her uniform crisp despite the chaos around them. "Then we will do what we have done to 17 other species. We will erase you from existence." Vexthal gestured and the screen showed images of dead worlds. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled away. Nothing left but empty rocks floating in space. "You have 72 hours to decide," the alien commander said. "Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving silence on both the station and the planet below. Park looked at the alien fleet through the viewport. They waited with the patience of predators who knew their prey was trapped. On Earth, people gathered in their homes, watching the news with growing fear. In Tokyo, families hugged each other as children cried. In New York, people filled the churches and mosques and temples, praying to every god they could name. In Mumbai, engineers worked frantically to reinforce shelters that everyone knew would be useless against alien weapons. Lieutenant Min Ho-yoon sat in his fighter cockpit, staring at the enemy fleet through his canopy. His squadron was docked at the lunar base, 12 small ships against hundreds of alien monsters. His hands shook as he thought about his sister back in Busan, probably hiding in a basement with their parents. "It's not fair," his wingman whispered over the radio. "How are we supposed to fight them?" Minho did not answer because he did not know. Down on Earth, engineer Seung-ho An worked in a secret facility hidden beneath the mountains of North Korea. For 20 years, he had been building something the world did not know about. Satellites disguised as space junk, weapons hidden in asteroids, systems that looked broken but were just sleeping. "Are we really going to do this?" his assistant asked, watching the readouts on her screen. "If the Admiral gives the order," An replied. Checking his instruments one more time, Colonel Eunbi Song stood in the control room of the lunar railgun facility. The massive weapons were aimed at empty space, but her computers were calculating firing solutions for targets that had never been hit before. The tungsten rods in the magazines were simple metal, but they would hit with the force of meteors. "The math works," her weapons officer reported, "but we only get one chance." "Then we better not miss," Song said. The hours passed slowly. Across human space, people said goodbye to each other. Parents recorded messages for children who might never hear them. Soldiers checked their weapons one last time. Scientists destroyed research that could not be allowed to fall into alien hands. In his office, President Lee met with his advisors. The room was full of smoke from too many cigarettes and the bitter smell of too much coffee. "We could surrender," suggested Minister of Defense Young Min Cho. "Maybe they would be merciful." "Look at those dead worlds," General Choi pointed at the screen. "Does that look merciful to you? Then what do we do?" Cho asked. "Our entire fleet could not scratch their shields." Strategist Nam spoke for the first time in hours. We do what humans have always done when faced with a stronger enemy. We get creative. With 6 hours left before the deadline, Admiral Park received a coded message from Earth. He read it twice, then looked out at the alien fleet again. They hung in space like sleeping giants, confident in their power, sure of their victory. Park opened a channel to every human ship, station, and settlement in the solar system. His voice was calm as he spoke. People of Earth and Luna and Mars and the outer colonies, today we face an enemy that believes we are weak. They think we will bow down because their ships are bigger and their weapons stronger. They have conquered 17 civilizations by making them afraid. He paused, watching the alien ships through the viewport. But they have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of when we are angry. They do not understand what happens when you threaten our families, our children, our way of life. Captain Kim stood beside him, her hand on the communication console, ready to broadcast their response. Commander Vexthal, Park said, opening a channel to the alien fleet. You gave us 72 hours to surrender. We have made our decision. The bridge fell silent. On Earth, in shelters and bunkers and military bases, people stopped what they were doing to listen. You chose war, Admiral Park said, his voice carrying across space to every human and alien ear that could hear it. Now watch us teach you how it is done. Commander Vexthal laughed when he heard the human response. The sound echoed through his command ship like broken glass. Around him, his officers shared the amusement. Humans were about to learn why 17 civilizations had surrendered rather than face Corvani might. Prepare for bombardment, Vexthal ordered. Start with their orbital stations. Make it slow so the surface dwellers can watch their defenses die. The Corvani weapons charged with a sound like thunder. Energy cannons that could melt mountains swiveled toward the human positions. This would be over in minutes. Then something unexpected happened. Small human fighters launched from the lunar base, flying directly toward the alien fleet. Lieutenant Min Ho-yoon led 12 tiny ships against hundreds of massive ones. Look at them, laughed Sub-Commander Kreltox. They attack us with toys. The human fighters screamed toward the Corvani formation at maximum speed. Point defense systems locked onto them immediately. The aliens had weapons designed to stop missiles and torpedoes. Destroying these fighters would be simple. The first wave of human ships exploded far short of their targets. Bright flashes lit up space as one after another was destroyed. The Corvani officers cheered. Even the human weapons were pathetic, but Min-ho smiled as his fighter disintegrated around him. His escape pod fired toward the lunar surface as planned. He had done his job perfectly. Sir, a Corvani sensor operator said, his voice uncertain. The explosion pattern was very precise, almost like they were trying to create a specific debris field. Vexthal turned to look at the tactical display. The human ships had exploded in a perfect line between the Corvani fleet and the moon. Why would they do that unless... The answer came as tungsten rods fired from lunar railguns. Colonel Yoon Bi-sung had waited for the exact moment when the alien sensors were blinded by the fighter explosions. The metal projectiles moved at incredible speed, invisible against the background of debris. The first rod punched through the shield of a Corvani cruiser like it was not even there. The shield generators were designed to stop energy weapons. They could not handle a simple piece of metal moving at nearly the speed of light. Impossible, Vexthal shouted as his ship shook from impacts. How did they penetrate our defenses? More rods found their targets. Alien ships that had seemed invincible moments before were now leaking air and energy into space. The Corvani scrambled to adjust their shield frequencies, but it was too late. The barrage lasted only 30 seconds, but 12 alien ships were crippled or destroyed. Engineer Sung Ho-an watched from his hidden bunker as his satellites came online. For decades, they had drifted through space disguised as broken debris. The aliens had scanned them and dismissed them as harmless junk. Now they revealed their true purpose. Electromagnetic pulse in 3, 2, 1, An whispered, pressing the activation button. The pulse spread outward from 100 hidden sources. It was not strong enough to damage the alien ships, but it scrambled their communication systems. Suddenly, the Corvani fleet could not coordinate their attacks. Ships that had moved like a single organism now struggled to work together. Captain So-young Kim seized the moment. The orbital defense station Aegis had been pretending to be damaged, running on minimal power to avoid attention. Now it roared back to life, its weapons targeting the confused alien vessels. All batteries fire, Kim ordered. Human energy weapons were weaker than Corvani ones, but they did not need to be stronger. They just needed to hit the ships that were already damaged by the railgun attack. The Aegis poured fire into the wounded alien vessels, finishing what the tungsten rods had started. On his command ship, Vexthal watched his tactical display with growing disbelief. 17 civilizations had fought conventionally, fleet against fleet, trying to match Corvani technology with their own inferior weapons. Humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. "Get me a communication link to the High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have encountered an unexpected complication." Major Dayun Park, Admiral Park's daughter, led a boarding party toward a drifting Corvani cruiser. The ship was not destroyed, just disabled by the railgun attack. Its crew was alive but trapped inside a vessel with no power and failing life support. "Remember," she told her Marines as their transport ship docked with the alien vessel, "we need prisoners and we need their technology intact. Try not to break anything important." The boarding was almost too easy. The Corvani crew had never been boarded before. Their empire conquered through overwhelming force, not close combat. They did not know how to fight in narrow corridors against enemies wearing armor. Dayun's team moved through the ship like a storm. They used stun weapons when possible, but the aliens who resisted learned quickly that humans were very good at violence up close. Within an hour, the cruiser was in human hands. "Sir," reported Sergeant Kyung Ho Bei, "we have secured the engineering section. The alien computer systems are intact, and we have captured 3 of their technical officers." Dayun looked through the viewport at the Corvani fleet regrouping in the distance. They were calling for reinforcements, no doubt. This was just the beginning. "Package everything," she ordered. "Computer cores, weapons, shield generators, even the food dispensers. Our scientists need to understand how these things work." The first battle was over, but the war was just starting. The Corvani had lost more ships in 30 minutes than they had in their last 3 conquests combined. They would be angry now, and angry enemies made mistakes. Back on Earth, President Lee watched the battle reports with amazement. "How many of their ships did we destroy?" 12 confirmed kills, 8 more heavily damaged," General Choi reported. "And we captured one of their cruisers intact." "What about our losses?" 12 fighters and their pilots. "But the pilots are safe. We recovered their escape pods. And the Aegis took some damage, but nothing critical." Lee shook his head in wonder. "I thought we would be lucky to damage even one of their ships." "The aliens fight like they have always fought," strategist Nam explained. "They expect their enemies to match them strength for strength. But humans learned long ago that you do not fight an elephant by trying to be a bigger elephant. You dig a pit and let the elephant fall into it." Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the alien fleet regroup beyond the range of the lunar weapons. They would be back soon, and they would be ready for human tricks this time. "Sir," Captain Kim reported, "long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. It looks like they are bringing their entire regional fleet." Park nodded. He had expected this. The aliens were used to quick victories. When faced with real resistance, they would bring overwhelming force to crush it quickly. "How long do we have? 6 hours, maybe 8. That would have to be enough." The captured alien ship was already being stripped apart by human engineers. Every piece of technology was being analyzed, copied, and improved. Humans were very good at learning from their enemies. "Send a message to all commands," Park ordered. "Tell them the first lesson is complete. Now we prepare for the second." Scientist Kyung-Soo Han cut into the alien computer core with trembling hands. The captured Corvani cruiser floated in space, hidden behind the dark side of the moon while human teams stripped it apart piece by piece. Every component was a mystery that could save humanity or doom it. "Be careful with that," warned Dr. Young-E Shin, watching over his shoulder. "If we damage the neural pathways, we lose everything." The alien technology was like nothing humans had ever seen. Instead of metal circuits and silicon chips, the Corvani used living tissue to process information. The computer cores were actually grown, not built, their organic components pulsing with electric life. "It is incredible," Han whispered as he exposed the core's inner workings. "Look at these neural clusters. They process information faster than our best quantum computers, but they are completely biological." Shin leaned closer, her eyes wide with understanding. "That is why our electromagnetic pulse worked so well. These systems are not shielded against electrical interference because they never had to be. The Corvani have never faced an enemy that used such crude tactics." Engineer Woojin Kang stood in the ship's engine room, staring at the massive power core that kept the vessel running. The energy output was enormous, but the design was simple. Too simple. They have not improved this technology in centuries, he said to his assistant. Maybe thousands of years. They just kept building the same engines over and over. Why would they change something that worked? The assistant asked. Kang smiled grimly. Because humans always change things, even when they work. We cannot help ourselves. But these aliens, they found one way to do things and never looked for a better way. The analysis took 3 days, but what the humans learned changed everything. The Corvani Empire was powerful because it was old and vast, not because it was innovative. They had conquered through overwhelming numbers and superior technology, but they had stopped evolving centuries ago. They are like sharks, Dr. Shin explained to Admiral Park over a secure communication link. Perfect killing machines that have not changed in millions of years because they never needed to. But we are not other fish. We are something they have never hunted before. Meanwhile, Captain Junseo Lim took his stealth destroyer Ghost Protocol on its first deep space mission. The ship was a testbed for new technology, built with human engineering and captured alien components. It should have been impossible, but humans had always been good at making impossible things work. "Sir," reported his navigation officer, "we are approaching the Corvani supply convoy. 3 cargo ships, 2 escorts." Lim studied the tactical display. The convoy was carrying supplies to reinforce the fleet attacking Earth. Destroying it would slow down the enemy reinforcements, but that was not the real goal. "Target the escort ships first," he ordered. "But do not destroy them completely. I want them to send a distress signal." The Ghost Protocol struck like a phantom. Its cloaking device, built from alien technology, made it invisible to Corvani sensors. The first escort ship exploded before its crew knew they were under attack. The second ship managed to raise its shields, but human weapons designed with alien technology cut through them easily. As the convoy burned, Lim's ship vanished again into the darkness. The surviving Corvani sent frantic reports to their fleet. Humans had attacked with impossible technology, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. "Let them wonder," Lim said with satisfaction. "Fear is a weapon too." Back at Earth, Admiral Hyojin Bayek studied star charts in her underground command center. The Corvani reinforcement fleet was only hours away, bringing enough firepower to turn Earth into glass. But Bayek was not planning to defend Earth anymore. "You want to do what?" President Lee asked when she explained her plan. "Take the war to them," Beck replied calmly. "The aliens expect us to wait here and die slowly. Instead, we attack their home systems while they are busy here." "That is suicide," protested General Choi. "We do not even know where their planets are." "Actually, we do." Commander Sujin Lee entered the room, still wearing the surgical modifications that had allowed her to infiltrate an alien trading post. Her skin was gray like a Corvani, and her eyes had been changed to solid black. The disguise was perfect except for the small smile that was purely human. "I have spent 2 weeks moving through their territory," Lee continued. "The Corvani control 47 star systems, but most of their military is concentrated around Earth right now. Their home systems are defended by second-line forces." She activated a holographic display showing the Corvani Empire. Red dots marked military installations, while blue showed the locations of enslaved species. "But here is the interesting part," Lee said, pointing to several systems. "They have not conquered all those species. They have enslaved them, and slaves always dream of freedom." Lee had been one of dozens of humans surgically altered to look like other species. They had infiltrated Corvani space disguised as traders, refugees, and prisoners. What they found was an empire held together by fear, not loyalty. The Corvani had crushed 17 civilizations, but they had not destroyed them. They had turned them into slave races, forcing them to work in mines and factories and farms. Millions of beings dreamed of revenge but had no hope of victory. "Until now," Lee explained. "We can give them hope. More importantly, we can give them weapons and training." On the mining world of Kethvar, Ji-Hoon Yu worked alongside 6 armed aliens who had once been proud warriors. The Kethians had fought the Corvani for 50 years before finally surrendering. Now they dug precious metals from their own mountains while their children learned to serve alien masters. "You really think we can fight them again?" asked Tekmar, a Kethian elder whose arms bore the scars of ancient battles. Yu smiled and handed him a modified mining drill. With a few simple changes, the tool became a weapon capable of punching through Corvani armor. "You never stopped fighting," Yu told him. "You just forgot how to win." Similar scenes played out across the Empire. On the ocean world of Salmar, Agent Mi Young-oh taught aquatic aliens how to flood Corvani installations. On the hive world of Vrixta, Seok Jin Kim showed insectoid aliens how their natural coordination could be turned into military advantage. The Corvani Empire had grown fat and slow over the centuries. They had never faced a coordinated rebellion because they had always crushed resistance quickly. But humans did not fight like other species. They did not seek to replace the Corvani Empire with a human one. They sought to destroy it completely by teaching everyone else how to be free. "Sir," reported a Corvani intelligence officer to Commander Vexthal, "we are receiving disturbing reports from the outer systems. Multiple uprisings on mining worlds, sabotage of supply lines. Some reports mention humans working with the slave populations." Vexthal studied the reports with growing unease. The pattern was wrong. Slave rebellions were supposed to be desperate, uncoordinated affairs that could be crushed with overwhelming force. These attacks were planned, coordinated, and effective. "How many humans could be behind this?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. They could be small infiltration teams, or there could be hundreds of them spread throughout our territory." Vexthal looked at the tactical display showing the fleet approaching. Earth soon they would have enough firepower to destroy the human homeworld. But if the reports were true, the humans had already spread throughout Corvani space like a virus. "Send word to the High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we may need more than one fleet to solve the human problem." General Chan Woo Park stood in the command center of the hidden asteroid base, watching dozens of displays showing worlds across the Corvani Empire. Each screen represented a different species, a different planet, a different chance to strike back at their oppressors. The moment had come to light a fire that would burn across the galaxy. "All teams report ready," announced Lieutenant Hai Wan Jung, monitoring communications from 37 different star systems. "The uprising begins in 60 seconds, Park nodded grimly. Months of preparation had led to this moment. Human infiltrators had spent weeks teaching alien slaves how to fight, how to coordinate, how to turn their daily tools into weapons of war. Now it was time to see if those lessons had taken root. "Execute Operation Freedom," Park ordered. On the industrial world of Kethvar, Thekmar the Keithian raised his 6 arms and roared a battle cry that had not been heard for 50 years. Around him, thousands of his people responded, their voices echoing through the mining tunnels like thunder. Ji-Hoon Yu smiled as he watched the alien workers transform into warriors. "Remember," Yu shouted over the noise, "the Corvani expect you to fight like you did before. But this time is different. This time you fight like humans taught you." The Keithians moved through the mining complex with deadly purpose. Their 6 arms made them perfect for the close-quarter combat tactics Yu had taught them. Modified mining equipment became weapons that could cut through Corvani armor. Industrial explosives became bombs that brought down guard towers. The Corvani garrison was caught completely off guard. They had ruled Kethvar for decades through fear and superior technology. They were not prepared for an enemy that used their own infrastructure against them. "Sir," gasped a Corvani communications officer, "the entire mining district is in revolt. They have seized the power plant and the spaceport. They are using our own equipment against us." Commander Velthok watched his security displays with growing panic. The uprising was not the desperate rabble he had expected. These aliens moved with coordination and purpose, striking exactly where his defenses were weakest. "Call for reinforcements," he ordered. "Full bombardment from orbit if necessary." But when he tried to contact the orbital defense platform, he found only static. Unknown to him, Agent Mi Young-oh was leading aquatic Salthani in a coordinated attack on Corvani coastal facilities on their ocean world. The amphibious aliens had used their natural swimming abilities to approach underwater installations that the Corvani thought were impregnable. "The tidal generators are down," reported Salthek, a Salthani warrior whose gills fluttered with excitement. "Without power, their orbital platforms cannot maintain position." O watched through binoculars as Corvani ships fell from the sky, their anti-grav systems failing without the energy they needed. The aliens had never considered that their oceanic power stations could be attacked from below. "Your people were made for this kind of warfare," she told Salthek. "The Corvani never bothered to learn how to fight in water because they cannot breathe it." Similar scenes played out across the Empire. On the hive world of Rixta, Insectoid aliens used their natural telepathic coordination to stage attacks that the Corvani could not predict or counter. Seokjin Kim had taught them that their greatest weakness could become their greatest strength. "You think like one mind," he had explained to the Vrixta Queen. "The Corvani cannot understand that because they are individuals. Use that confusion against them." The Vrixta struck like a single organism with a million bodies. When Corvani forces moved to counter an attack in one location, they found their supply lines cut in a dozen others. The insectoids could coordinate movements across an entire continent without using any technology the aliens could intercept. Captain Yan Wu, Zhang commanded a mixed fleet of human and alien ships approaching the Nexus Gate, the most important hyperspace junction in Corvani space. Control of the gate meant control of movement between the core worlds and the outer colonies. If the rebels could take it, they could cut the Empire in half. "Human ships will provide covering fire," Zhang announced to his mixed crew. "Keithian vessels will use their industrial rams to breach the station. Salthani ships will attack from below where their sensors are weak." The battle was unlike anything the Corvani had ever faced. Instead of one enemy with one strategy, they faced multiple species working together, each using their natural advantages while covering for others' weaknesses. It was coordination on a scale the rigid Corvani military could not match. "They are everywhere at once," reported the Nexus Gate commander to his superiors. "How are they coordinating without using our communication networks?" The answer was simple but impossible for the Corvani to understand. The humans had not just taught aliens how to fight. They had taught them how to work together as equals. Each species contributed what they did best while trusting others to handle what they could not. In the Corvani High Command, emergency meetings ran around the clock. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Mining worlds in revolt, supply lines cut, entire star systems going dark. And at the center of every uprising, there were reports of humans teaching aliens to fight. "How many humans are there?" demanded High Commander Zexkoth, his black eyes reflecting the emergency lights that had been flashing for hours. "Unknown," replied Intelligence Chief Mordanis. "We estimate between 500 and 2,000 individuals spread across our territory. But they are not leading these rebellions, they are teaching others to lead them." "That is impossible," Zexkoth snapped. "No species can coordinate across such distances without central command." "The humans can," Mordanis said quietly, "and now they have taught others to do the same." The Corvani Empire had conquered through a simple strategy. Overwhelming force applied quickly to crush resistance before it could spread. But this was not resistance in any form they understood. This was revolution, and it was spreading faster than they could respond to it. On Earth, Admiral Park watched the reports with satisfaction mixed with concern. The uprisings were succeeding beyond their wildest hopes, but the Corvani were not defeated yet. Their massive fleet was still approaching Earth, and when they arrived, they would have enough firepower to sterilize the planet. "Sir," reported Captain Kim, "the Corvani reinforcement fleet will arrive in 18 hours. Intelligence estimates over 300 ships, including at least 6 planet killers." Park nodded grimly. The diversions across the Empire were working, but they had not drawn off enough Corvani forces to save Earth. The final battle would still be fought in humanity's home system. "Any word from our deep space reconnaissance?" "Yes, sir. Captain Lim reports that the Corvani are pulling ships from their home defense fleets to reinforce the Earth attack. Their capital system is now defended by less than 50 vessels." Park smiled for the first time in days. The Corvani were making the classic mistake of generals throughout history. They were so focused on crushing the rebellion's source that they were leaving their own home vulnerable. "Send a message to Admiral Beck," he ordered. "Tell her it is time for the final lesson." Across the Empire, human agents received coded signals. The uprisings had served their purpose, drawing Corvani forces away from their vital systems and proving that the Empire could be defeated. Now came the most dangerous part of the plan. In hidden bases and captured ships, small groups of humans prepared for the deepest strike into enemy territory ever attempted. They would take the war to the Corvani homeworld itself, not to conquer it, but to deliver a message that would change everything. The dominoes were falling across the Empire. Soon they would reach the very heart of Corvani power. Admiral Taman Park stood on the bridge of his flagship as the Corvani planet killer approached Earth. The massive vessel was the size of a small moon, its crystalline hull crackling with enough energy to turn a world into molten slag. Around it, 300 Corvani warships formed a wall of death that could destroy any fleet ever assembled. "Sir," reported Captain So-Young Kim, "the planet killer will be in firing range in 6 hours. Earth Command requests immediate assistance." Park stared at the tactical display showing 2 critical battles happening at once. Behind him, Earth faced annihilation. Ahead of him, the Corvani homeworld lay within striking distance, defended by only a skeleton fleet. He had to choose between saving his homeworld and ending the war. A priority message arrived from Earth. Commander Bo Young Nam appeared on the screen, her face calm despite the approaching destruction. Behind her, the command center bustled with activity as Earth's final defenses came online. "Admiral," Nam said simply, "finish what we started. Earth will take care of itself." The transmission ended before Park could respond. He looked out at the stars, knowing that the next few hours would determine the fate of every free being in the galaxy. "All ships," he announced to his mixed fleet of human and alien vessels, "proceed to the Corvani homeworld. Maximum speed." As Park's fleet jumped to hyperspace, the planet killer's massive weapons began to charge. On Earth, engineer Hyun Soo Cho watched from his command bunker as energy readings climbed beyond anything humans had ever faced. "Sir?" his assistant asked nervously. "Are you sure this will work?" Cho smiled grimly as he watched his instruments. For months, he had been converting Earth's entire industrial capacity into one massive defensive system. Every factory, every power plant, every satellite had been linked together into a network that spanned the globe. "The Corvani think Earth is just another planet," he said. "They are about to learn that humans do not build planets. We build weapons that look like planets." The planet killer fired, sending a beam of pure destruction toward Earth. The energy was enough to crack a world's crust and boil its oceans. But instead of striking an undefended planet, the beam hit a carefully designed trap. Earth's magnetic field, amplified by hundreds of fusion reactors, caught the alien weapon's energy and redirected it into massive collection arrays hidden beneath the surface. The power that should have destroyed Earth instead fed into humanity's greatest engineering project. "Energy absorption at 96%, Cho reported. "All systems nominal. Beginning counterattack sequence." The Corvani planet killer had never faced return fire before. Its weapons were designed to destroy undefended worlds, not fight other warships. When Earth's surface opened to reveal continent-sized weapons arrays, the alien crew could only watch in shock as their ultimate weapon was turned against them. The beam that struck the planet killer was made from its own energy, focused and amplified by human engineering. The massive ship's shields flared and failed. Its crystalline hull cracked like glass. Within minutes, the most powerful weapon in the Corvani arsenal was nothing but debris falling toward Earth's atmosphere. Meanwhile, Park's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Corvani home system. Before them lay Corva Prime, a world of gleaming cities and orbital stations that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. 50 defense ships moved to intercept the attacking fleet. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the defense fleet is demanding our surrender." "Ignore them," Park ordered. "Open a channel to every Corvani citizen on the planet below." What followed was not an attack, but something the Corvani had never experienced: the truth. Park's fleet transmitted every piece of evidence humans had gathered about the Empire's crimes: the slaughter of innocent worlds, the enslavement of entire species, the lies told to the Corvani people about the grateful subjects who served them willingly. On Corva Prime, citizens watched in shock as their screens filled with images their government had hidden from them. They saw the dead worlds Vexthal had shown to Earth. They saw the slave camps where conquered beings worked until they died. They saw the truth about their glorious empire. "This is what your leaders have done in your name," Park announced to the planet below. "This is the empire you have been told to be proud of." The response was immediate and devastating. On Corva Prime, riots erupted as citizens demanded answers from their government. The carefully controlled society that had supported the empire for centuries began to tear itself apart. Captain Tae Young, CO, led a small strike team toward the government complex, while chaos erupted in the streets below. His mission was surgical: capture the Corvani leadership alive, not to execute them, but to put them on trial before the species they had oppressed. "Remember," CO told his team as they infiltrated the heavily defended complex, "we are not conquerors. We are liberators. Even the Corvani deserve justice, not revenge." The strike team moved through the complex with precision, using non-lethal weapons when possible. The Corvani guards, already demoralized by the revelations broadcast to their world, offered little resistance. Within 2 hours, the government that had ruled the galaxy was in human custody. Across the Empire, the effect was immediate. Corvani forces, learning that their own homeworld had fallen without a shot, began to surrender en masse. The rigid military structure that had held the Empire together collapsed as individual commanders chose to save their crews rather than fight for leaders who were now prisoners. Commander Vexthal, still orbiting the debris of his planet killer, received the surrender order with disbelief. "This is impossible," he said to his bridge crew. "We are the Corvani Empire. We do not surrender." But his crew was staring at the tactical displays showing human forces throughout their territory. The Empire was not just defeated, it was dissolved. Every world was declaring independence. Every slave species was free. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "Admiral Park is requesting a meeting." The meeting took place on neutral ground, aboard a captured Corvani station that had been converted into a conference facility. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to witness the end of an empire and the birth of something new. Park sat across from Vexthal in a room filled with beings who had been enemies days before. The Corvani commander looked smaller somehow, his gray skin pale with shock. "You could have destroyed us," Vexthal said, his voice barely a whisper. "You had the power to do to us what we did to others. Why did you not?" Park considered the question carefully. Around the table sat Kethians, Salthani, Vrixta, and a dozen other species that had been enslaved for generations. They watched the exchange with intense interest. "Because destruction was never our goal," Park replied. "You chose war and we taught you how it is done. But the human way of war is not about conquest. It is about liberation." He gestured to the mixed group around the table. "Look around this room. Do you see humans ruling over others? Do you see a new empire with Earth at its center? We fought to free everyone, including your own people, from the lies their government told them." Vexthal looked around the table, seeing former slaves sitting as equals with their former masters. The Corvani civilians who had learned the truth about their empire were working alongside the species they had oppressed to build something better. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you learn the final lesson," Park said. "You learn how to live as equals instead of masters. You learn how to earn your place in the galaxy instead of taking it by force." 6 months later, the Corvani Federation held its first democratic election. Former slaves voted alongside former masters to choose representatives from every member species. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was free. Admiral Park stood on the observation deck of the new Federation headquarters, watching ships from 100 different worlds work together to build something that had never existed before, a truly equal alliance. Captain Kim joined him at the viewport. "Any regrets, sir?" Park thought about the question. The war had cost millions of lives. Earth still bore scars from the planet killer's attack. But across the galaxy, species that had been slaves for centuries were now free to choose their own destiny. "The Corvani chose war," he said finally. "We taught them how it was done. But more importantly, we taught them how it should end." In the distance, a mixed crew of humans, Kethians, and Salthani worked together to repair a damaged station. They laughed together as they worked, their different voices joining in harmony. The war was over. The real work of peace had just begun.